and be jumping and jumping and jumping on everybody. That's just not allowed. So this is the stuff we work on right away when we get these dogs when they're tiny, tiny puppies. So I've had Jackson for quite a while, and we've been training off and on he's 5 years old now. So we've been training off and on for 5 years, and he's a really good demonstration dog. So we go to different organizations and schools and businesses and do these kind of demonstrations. So puppy love, just briefly, the overview of Puppy Love Caring Canines. It's an assistance dog organization, which means that we train. People get kind of confused. What does that mean? So we train all. Assistance dog is kind of the big umbrella, and then there's several things underneath the umbrella. One thing under the umbrella is hearing dogs. We train dogs who we place with people who they can't hear. They have a hearing disability, and so we train those dogs specifically to place with people who need a hearing dog. So if you were in your home and the doorbell rang, how would you know? You can't hear it. So the dog comes and tells you, hey, somebody's at the door. If you can't hear and you're in your home and you're cooking dinner and the timer on the stove goes off, how are you going to know? If you can't hear it. So the dog comes and says, hey, come on, timer's off on the stove. If you're in your home and your smoke alarm goes off and there's a fire someplace, that's pretty serious stuff. You're such a good boy. How are you going to know if the fire alarm goes off if you can't hear? So the dog comes and tells you, hey, look, it's the fire alarm. So they take you to the sound, whatever you need to pay attention to. So that's what those dogs are trained for. We also train alert dogs. Some people have seizures, and they don't know when these seizures are going to happen. And if they happen to be at the top of a flight of steps, and the seizure is going to happen, that's pretty dangerous. So minutes and minutes and minutes before the seizure happens, these guys know it. We don't know exactly how. We think they can sense it, but they can smell that you're going to have a seizure pretty soon. And so they tap you and tap you and tap you, and they alert you and they tell you, oh, sit down, don't go down those steps because you're going to have a seizure pretty soon. So these dogs are very, very important to people who have whatever kind of disabilities. Now, Jackson is trained to be a service dog. Jackson, down. He's a good boy. So he's trained to be what's called a service dog, which is a different kind of assistant dog. A service dog is trained to help people with more physical stuff. For instance, if you were stuck in a wheelchair. Does anybody know anybody who's in a wheelchair? Yeah? So if you're in a wheelchair, if you can just imagine that for a minute, if your legs completely didn't work at all, and you were in a chair all the time, what kind of things couldn't you do that we just all kind of take for granted? Like if you wanted to pop out of the refrigerator, and you wheeled your wheelchair up to the refrigerator, and you tried to open the door's going to hit the bottom of your wheelchair. It's really hard just to open the fridge to get a drink. So Jackson, if you tell him, go tug, he'll go to the refrigerator, he'll pull open the refrigerator door for you so that you can just wheel up, grab your pop, and go. He'll close the door for you too when you tell him, close the door, and he'll close the door for you too. If you are in a wheelchair and you do something just really basic, like you drop your keys on the floor. If you're way up here in a wheelchair, really, how hard is that to get all the way? Try it sometime. When you're sitting in a chair and you don't move anything from here down, try to get down all the way to the floor to pick something up, a pen or a pencil or some keys. That's really hard. Guess what he does? He just waits for you to drop stuff. And you tell him, get it, honey. And he'll pick it up and put it right back in your hand. Time and time again. Doesn't matter. He doesn't care how many times you drop something. You can drop something all the time. He doesn't care. He's always happy to help you. He's very patient. He's very good. So that's another thing difficult if you're in a wheelchair. If you wanted to really get out and do some shopping and be independent, okay, if you're in a wheelchair, sometimes people in wheelchairs, sometimes their arms don't work that great either. So if you're going to go to some place like maybe some big store is having a big sale, and you just need some stuff, and you go wheel yourself up to the door, and there's the plate, the push plate on the building somewhere on the door, next to the door, to hit to open that automatic door. What if your arms don't work that great either? You can't push that. How are you going to get that door open? That's what he does too. You point to it and you tell him, go push, and he'll go ahead of you. He does a high five. He does the best high five on that push plate. The door goes open and you walk in and you do your shopping. So those are just some really basic things that just we can really kind of forget about and kind of we take simple things like that for granted. And it's really important if you can't do those things, then you realize, wow, I need some help. And these guys really, really give you independence. So, any questions so far? I'll have questions at the end too, but any questions you can always just flag me down. We train all